A mysterious man, hiding his face in the shadows, holds out a purple vial and asks if anyone wants to change. The girl with golden hair looks at the vial offered to her with surprise and doubt, pondering the possibility of change. She recalls the wicked taunts of the girls who mocked her, saying she could get fat like Lady Chester. Another scoffer snidely wondered if she was ashamed to call herself a lady while everyone around her laughed. These words hurt the girl deeply. She lowers her head, thinking that no one can accept her for who she is. But in the back of her mind, she has the urge to try it, and she clutches the vial in her hand, full of determination. She decisively takes a sip from the bottle, declaring that she wants to change. 2. The vial falls and shatters, releasing its mysterious contents. The girl loses consciousness and sinks into a magical space, inwardly promising to change at any cost. At the same time, somewhere in the modern world, a workday is ending, and someone tells their team to finish cleaning and go home. A sign on the door announces that the establishment is closed. A girl with dark hair, dressed in a work uniform, confirms the end of her shift with a smile and thanks everyone for a good job. Stepping outside, she feels the cold and exhales into the frosty air, noting how cold she is. A woman and child walk past her, and the girl happily reminds her mother that it's Christmas and asks for cake. The girl stops, looking after them, and realizes with a slight sadness that it is already Christmas. Looking ahead, she thinks enviously of Yuna, her beautiful face and slender figure. At the same time, the other girls discuss Yuna, saying that she has a hard time. After all, she is an orphan and has to work hard for a scholarship. Hearing this from afar, Yuna clenches the box in her hand, thinking about how everyone feels sorry for her. Inside herself, she recognizes that she envies others. Looking up to the night sky, she sadly notices that at least the moon looks beautiful tonight. The girl reflects that it is worth appreciating the simple things in life, because even such small things begin to improve her mood. Suddenly, she is surprised to notice something up ahead that makes her wary. Bright lights and the sharp squeal of brakes warn of impending danger. She is hit by a car. There is confusion. In her mind, she doesn't understand what's going on or why she feels all right. Someone looks up at her, blurting out her name or words. She asks herself where she is while surrounded by light and fog. Doubt grows. Perhaps she's dead? But her fingers begin to move. The girl with golden hair wakes up abruptly when she hears someone calling her name. Eleanor. The man hugs her, glad that she's finally come to her senses as she coughs. He explains that he immediately came running as soon as he heard the news, and worriedly asks if she's feeling any pain. The girl looks around the luxurious room in confusion, and doesn't understand where she is, or what the man next to her is saying. She is confused that the language sounds like Korean, but wonders if she's in heaven if she made it after death. Remembering the moment she was hit by the car, she is convinced she died, though before she even realized it. Her thoughts are filled with regret at the stupid way she died. But suddenly she notices something strange. She realizes in shock that her hands look puffy and not like her old ones. Panicking, she screams, trying to figure out whose body she's woken up in, and the man calls for a doctor. The girl in desperation asks for a mirror to see for herself what is happening to her. The servants rush to carry out the order and give her the mirror, while worrying about Miss Eleanor's condition. Receiving the mirror with trembling hands, she thanks with uncertainty. Looking into the reflection, she realizes with horror that this body is not hers, but she can't fully believe what is happening. Looking in the mirror, she is surprised to notice that her face is now as round as the moon. She compares her new face to the full moon she saw before she died. Unable to believe what is happening, she falls backwards in panic. Outside, someone shouts her name in alarm upon hearing the noise. When asked her name, she says her name is Young Yuna, but it seems that here she is, Eleanor Yuna. The doctor records her words and concludes that Eleanor probably hit her head hard. The girl is shocked to hear this and can't believe she is thought to be crazy. The doctor suggests that she may be delirious and offers to observe her temporarily, while the man demands immediate treatment. The doctor, confusedly agreeing, offers to give her medicine to clear her mind, but this only angers the girl. Eleanor demands that everyone leave immediately, as she needs to be alone and think things over. A man calls out worriedly to a girl named Eleanor, clearly alarmed by her condition. The maids and the man with the mustache look at him from behind. She, holding on to her hem, assures him that she is not suffering from a mental disorder, just badly frightened. In her opinion, she is neither in heaven nor in hell, which makes things even more confusing. The girl slaps herself sharply on the cheeks to recover. She convinces herself to pull herself together and decide where she is and whose body it is. She wonders if there is a large mirror in the room. She needs to realize how much has changed. She is surprised that there is not a single mirror in such a spacious room. Nevertheless, she is determined to find one. A girl finds a box with a cross-shaped pattern and opens it, accidentally dropping a ring. Inside, she discovers a diary, presumably belonging to Eleanor. She starts flipping through the journal and suddenly freezes, realizing something important. It turned out to be not a diary at all, but a collection of recipes, decorated with pomp and rainbow special effects. Frustrated, she shouted that it was of no use to her at all. Collapsing on the bed, she admitted to herself that she had never learned anything except that she understood the local language. Suddenly she stopped, realizing she could continue her search in the other rooms. She decided that if there was nothing in this room, it was worth looking around the rest of the house. Looking into the hallway, she noticed that everything was quiet and perhaps everyone had left. She realized that the room was indeed empty and, breathing a sigh of relief, walked out. As she walked down the empty corridors, she was surprised that she didn't meet a soul. As she assessed the size of the mansion, she realized she could easily get lost inside. Pensive, she crashed into a figure in a blue uniform. Startled, she recoiled and began apologizing to the man she had just crashed into. When the girl tried to apologize, she slipped and stumbled. She fell to the floor and cried out in pain as she sat in front of the stranger. The uniformed guy asked why she was wandering down the hall when she should have stayed in bed, because he heard she was feeling confused. As she looked at him, she marveled. At his appearance, she thought he was incredibly handsome. When he asked again what she was doing here, she blanched and said she was just looking for something. He stared at her suspiciously, wondering if she was looking for something like that. She was perplexed as to what was wrong with her clothes. He shifted his gaze to her feet, covered in mud. Jor sighed heavily and clarified that she was in her nightgown, as if it was obvious. Then he added that she was also barefoot, which finally confirmed her inappropriate appearance.
He came closer and, taking the lady by the arms, lifted her off the floor, claiming that the girl was behaving very strangely. She was outraged by the behavior of the young man, whom she saw today for the first time in her life, so she began to be indignant. Who was he to behave like that? The young man looked at the heroine with surprised eyes and asked how she could ask such questions to her older brother, who was like an angel. She could not understand why the young man called himself an older brother, because she was sure that he was an orphan. She didn't care who this stranger was, and the heroine really wanted him to immediately let her go and put her on the floor. But instead of listening to the young lady, the young man lifted her onto his shoulder and declared that his sister would definitely go with him. He brought her into his office, and sitting comfortably in a chair, Yuna was ready to listen to this strange man. Opening the window, the young man declared that no matter how warm it was outside, it was probably too early for the lady to be walking around in such clothes, and wasn't it enough that she fainted twice? After the young man's words, Diana didn't even understand whether he was worried or insulting. She picked up a mug of hot milk and, taking a sip, completely forgot about her bad mood, feeling the pleasant sweetness in her mouth. All this time, the young man sat opposite his sister and carefully watched her habits and behavior after she recently fainted. She really wanted to believe that the young man was actually kind, but he was so rude that I wanted to take back my words of kindness. The heroine asked if there were mirrors in the other rooms, and the brother was surprised why his sister suddenly needed a mirror, since she had previously not liked to look at herself. Diana admitted hesitantly that she simply wanted to get a better look at herself, and at that moment she caught her brother's strange look. He seemed not to believe his sister's words at all, and in his opinion she was behaving very strangely. He wondered if his sister should look in the mirror, because before she would break all the mirrors in which she saw her appearance, and then she would cry for a long time. After her request, the young man took the risk and asked his assistant to bring a large mirror. Therefore, after some time, a young man with a large, full-length mirror stood in front of the heroine. Walking up to the large mirror, she took a deep breath and looked at her reflection to finally meet the heroine she had been reborn into. A plump lady stood before her, but it was not the Yuna she knew, but a new reality she had to come to terms with. Tears rolled down her cheeks, and she turned away from the mirror, unable to look at herself any longer. She asked if her name was really Diana, and the young man confirmed that the heroine's name was Diana Chester. A sense of hopelessness grew within her. Lady Diana knew she had to accept this new reality, but how could she do that when she felt lost and alone? She took a deep breath, trying to calm herself down. Maybe this rebirth was not the end, but the beginning of something new, but at that moment she found it hard to believe. The heroine found herself in the year 497 according to the Welsh calendar, in a country that seemed to have been taken from the novel The Welsh Empire, where the precious youngest daughter of the Earl of Chester, named Diana, lived, and now Una was in her body. However, the thing she realized after staying in the mansion for a week was that there was practically no way for her to return to her past life. But if you think about it, the heroine didn't have to come back at all, because in this place you don't have to worry about food or work, and everyone in this house was incredibly kind to her. But the main problem was that Una was not Diana at all, and she could not tell anyone about it. The older brother would constantly enter his sister's room without knocking and constantly call her a pig, hinting at her physique. In such a short time, she had come to hate the unprovoked visits of her older brother, who had probably come again to mock her. But before Lady Diana had time to ask even one question, the young man immediately approached her and began to ruin her hair, assuring her that she was talking inappropriately to her older brother, who was worried about his little sister and had simply come to visit. Before Lady Diana had time to get tired of him, the butler entered the room and announced the arrival of Mr. Woburn, who was waiting in the drawing room. Diana was very glad that she was saved from the stupid jokes of her older brother, who was forced to go right now. Even though Diana was his sister, the young man still suspected that something was wrong. But on the plane, she was only worried that Mary had combed her hair so diligently in the morning, and her older brother had come and ruined her entire hairstyle. Heading towards the exit, the young man was indignant that he didn't even have time to drink tea at his younger sister's, but she didn't want to sing tea with him at all. After leaving the room, the brother reminded his sister to drink the medicine the doctor had given her and to sit quietly in the room because Mr. Woburn had arrived, with whom he was to have an important meeting. But Diana was not the type to sit idly in her room at the behest of her older brother, so she was only slightly curious to follow him and spy on him. After her brother left, she immediately went out the door to see which way he was heading. The young man noticed that Diana had left the room, and not even 5 minutes had passed since he told her not to leave, and this incredibly irritated the young man. He went out to the guest and said that it would be better for him to wait in the living room, but the young man insisted that he had only arrived for a short time. Diana watched her brother's meeting with the guest from the top floor, and for the first time saw that same Woburn. Woburn wore an elegant suit that emphasized his slender lines and gave him an aristocratic appearance. Having seen him, Diana did not believe that such a handsome man could even exist in the world, and now she was interested in why he came to visit his older brother. The young man joked that he had no urgent business at all, and he simply came to visit his good friend. But it was just a joke, and he handed the letter personally to Diana's brother, and apparently it was something particularly secret. She noticed that the boys clearly had a long-standing friendly relationship, since Woburn could say such things to Aidan. At this moment, the guest noticed that someone was watching their conversation, and he clearly felt a close gaze in his direction. Looking up at the second-floor balcony, he saw a girl in a pink dress who was indeed looking in their direction. Diana was not prepared for the fact that she would meet the eyes of this cute young man, and she was very afraid that he noticed how she was spying on their conversation. Woburn smiled when he saw the lady, and the smile was genuine, warm, like sunlight breaking through the clouds. Diana was delighted not only by the handsome appearance of the young man, but also by his incredible charm, and could not contain her emotions, and as soon as she met the eyes of the young man, she immediately realized that she really wanted to know who he was. The heroine's life had changed, and she couldn't help but think about what it meant for her. Through the glass she watched the wind play with the leaves of the trees, and in this movement she found a reflection of her own feelings. Even the maid, who was busy cleaning the room in the morning, noticed that the lady looked very thoughtful. Lady Diana sighed, filling her chest with fresh air, and she could not stop thinking about the dark-haired, tall young man with whom she had met eyes yesterday. As she understood, Woburn turned out to be the best friend of Aidan, her older brother. Diana assumed that, judging by everything, these young men are definitely handsome, but their friendship can hardly be called mutual. Diana's thoughts were so confused in her head that she really wanted to forget all of this and think about how to live in this world under the name of another girl. The thought that she would have to forget everything somehow influenced Diana, and she was sure that this idea would definitely work. She enthusiastically asked the mayor to gather everyone in the house right then and there, and considered herself an incredible genius for coming up with such an original idea. Soon, everyone was gathered in the hall of the mansion, and none of those present understood why they were there. Diana politely addressed the residents of the mansion and thanked everyone for coming despite their business. She was getting ready to make an important announcement, and the first step in her plan was to tell it that she had supposedly suffered amnesia and had completely forgotten who she was. So Diana used an excuse so that no one would guess that she was a different person. And now, if she didn't know something, she could just say that she had lost her memory. The next morning, Diana could not wake up for a long time, and the maid came to her room and warned that the lady needed to get up and have breakfast. Looking at Mary, she was horrified because there were huge bruises under the girl's eyes and the maid's face was very pale. She said that because of the news that Diana had reported yesterday, the servants of the house had a meeting until late at night. The residents of the estate were worried about the lady, and none of them knew how best to behave because the lady had lost her memory and did not remember who she was. It was the first time Diana had heard such pleasant words, and she did not expect that they would all be so worried. Mary said that in their conversation they came to the conclusion that it would be good if Lady Diana began to communicate with them more. Mary was sure that if they talked often, it would be easier for the mistress to remember their faces and perhaps her memory would return again, but the heroine knew that this would definitely not happen. So the maid bowed and said her name so that Diana would know that she was serving and helping her. Mary knew the lady better than anyone and was very proud of the fact that they were close, so she warned Diana that she could always have a heart-to-heart talk with her. The lady immediately had a question for the maid, and she was happy to find out the answers to some questions. The first thing Diana asked was whether she had always been so fat, and this was the most important thing that worried the lady. Diana wanted to know what could have caused her to suddenly start gaining weight. But after hearing these words, the maid tried to leave the room as quickly as possible, saying that she needed to do something very urgently. Things ended badly with Mary, and the maid simply ran out of the room to her mistress without answering the question that was troubling her. However, after this, Diana found it easier to communicate with people in the mansion, and every morning she greeted each of them sincerely, where she calmly came out of her room and talked, and one fine morning her father was waiting for her in the blooming garden. He was very worried about his daughter and immediately asked how she was feeling, and Diana thanked the man for his concern. He still couldn't believe that his daughter seemed to have turned into a different person that day, and he seemed to feel that she was not at all the same as before. When the lady told the servants about her memory loss, the butler immediately came to her father and reported everything, and he could not believe that the withdrawn Diana gave a speech in front of people, and his daughter certainly could not do such a thing. No one else was supposed to know about Diana's condition, and her father was not going to watch his daughter suffer a second time. So the father decided to talk about everything with Diana herself, asking in more detail about her amnesia. Diana asked the man not to worry and assured him that she was completely healthy, and if this was really the case, he would only be happy. She noticed that her father was very worried, but she could not understand how one could be unhappy in the mansion, because there were such incredibly delicious desserts in this house. The father met with Diana to talk and said that he would have to leave his daughter in such a state. He needed to go to the imperial palace, and he was very worried that Diana would be left alone in the mansion. She asked her father not to worry, Mary and other servants would be in the mansion, but in reality, Diana couldn't wait for her father to leave the house so she could finally check the other rooms. As soon as her father left, Diana immediately went outside and was glad that she could finally go out for a walk in peace, and this was her first normal walk since she remained Diana Chester. Taking a deep breath, the heroine felt incredibly fresh air, but suddenly heard a voice behind her. Diana really wanted to be alone, but even now she was unable to do so, and there really was someone standing behind the girl. It was Mary who insisted that the lady must not strain herself, and wherever she went, she was obliged to go with her. She must also be accompanied by a guard, Evan, who promised that he would not interfere with the mistress's walk under any circumstances, but would always be nearby. Diana happily thanked him, because what girl wouldn't want to be accompanied by such a sunny guy? This was the heroine's first walk in her new body, and she was very impatient to see the new world. Going for a walk, she was sure that a very cool day awaited her and believed that it would bring a lot of joy. When the carriage approached the small town, the heroine did not yet know what she would encounter and how this walk would change her second life. On the street, she was met by an aristocratic acquaintance who turned to Miss Chester and stated that the girl could not behave like a worthy lady. For some unknown reason, Lady Diana was sitting in the middle of the street, and probably the people standing around thought that the lady was making fun of her. Indeed, something strange was happening, and this young stranger had the audacity to insult Madame Diana in front of the locals. Everything happened very unexpectedly, and if you go into details, the situation turned against Diana. To understand how this happened, we need to go back a few hours, when Lady Diana became ill on the way from being very sick in the carriage. In Yuna's body, the heroine never suffered from motion sickness. Now she wondered if in Tiana's body the task was only the soul. Yuna and her servant stopped in the forest, and she went out to get some fresh air, but was soon ready to continue on her way again. She ran into the carriage and shouted that whoever sits down last would have to walk to the village. The maid was not sure that the mistress was in a condition to continue the journey, but they could not go against her will and obediently agreed to continue the journey. Stopping at one of the local taverns, the young man brought a rather large dish for Diana, and she was surprised because it was definitely Ivan who ordered it. Diana told the waiter that she had not ordered this dish, but the young man probably thought so because of her build. After this incident, Diana and the servants quickly left the tavern, and the young man apologized to the lady because he put the dish in front of her only because she looked like she ate a lot. While walking around the city, Diana decided to buy some delicious cotton candy to take her mind off the incident at the tavern. But when she took it in her hands, she was surprised again because she had definitely ordered a small size, but the seller assured her that the small cotton wool would probably not be enough for Diana, so he simply made it bigger. And Diana was again sure that the big cotton candy was sold only because it looked fat. A girl with her little brother was just passing by, and Diana approached the children with care, sharing some cotton candy. The girl asked if the lady had bought it for someone else and was very happy, taking the large cotton candy with her. Diana didn't remember Yuna ever buying anything like that for herself, and she had never even held the cotton candy that made little children happy. The maid asked if the girl's nausea had passed, and Diana felt fine, preparing to go on with her shopping. She was even given gold coins for pocket money, and today the heroine wanted to spend absolutely everything. She approached every shop inquiring about expensive fabrics, hats, and other interesting goods. Suddenly, Diana's attention was drawn to the luxurious dresses, and she could not take her eyes off the luxurious sky blue outfit, deciding to take a last look here. Evan understood that he would probably have to walk with two girls for a long time, but they had already walked around almost all the shopping rows. Evan already looked tired, and Diana suggested that the young man go to the carriage and rest, but he could not leave his mistress. The girls were irritated when they chose clothes in the presence of a man, so Evan remained outside anyway, guarding the bags with things. Entering one of the expensive luxury boutiques, Diana looked at the festive dresses with pleasure and wanted to choose the right one for herself. Not far from Diana stood two girls, and seeing the lady, they recognized the daughter of an aristocrat, about whom rumors were spreading about her plumpness.